Good evening, and welcome to tonight's event, Voter, a short film screening and panel presented by New Jersey Performing Arts Center and New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. To kick off the conversation, please welcome Rick Thigpen, Senior Vice President of Corporate Citizenship at PSEG and Chairman of PSEG Foundation, a sponsor of tonight's event.
Thank you very much, Chelsea, and good evening, everyone. And welcome to tonight's New Jersey Performing Arts Center True Diversity Film Series discussion on voter suppression. PSEG and the PSEG Foundation are really pleased to be a part of this event tonight and really pleased to be a partner with NJPAC on the True Diversity Film Series to have some of these purposeful and important discussions. It goes without saying to everybody who can hear my voice that 2020 is one heck of a year, and with it is going to come an entirely new reality for all of us. And it is a reality that upholds and reinforces the importance of making your voice heard. And in a democracy, the best way to make your voice heard is to vote. You know, someone once said, nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come. And let's hope that 2020 is helping to usher in the real commitment among all Americans to the concept of equity and equal justice. And I can't think of a more powerful way to get that message across than to encourage everybody who can hear my voice again to vote in this election and to vote for equity and vote for equal justice. And it's really a privilege to be here today, and I'm really looking forward to a very interesting discussion on a very timely subject. You know, at Public Service, we have started a Powering Equity and Social Justice initiative designed to help make New Jersey a better place to live and to work. It's designed to help us remove some of the barriers of the past and help open doors for opportunity for all New Jerseyans so that we can all share in a brighter future together. And we're really excited to have Public Service work hard on behalf of the people of New Jersey for equity and social justice. And tonight is just one example of our participating in this endeavor. I hope everybody votes. I hope everybody votes for equity. I hope everybody votes for equal justice. I hope everybody votes to help make America a better place to live and America that we can all be proud of. But that can't happen in a democracy unless you vote. And that's why we're so excited about tonight's discussion. So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I'm really excited about the outstanding panel, and it's now my obligation to turn the program over to Andrea McChristian, the Law and Public Policy Director for the Institute of Social Justice. Andrea?
Thank you, Rick, and good evening, everyone. And welcome to the film screening and panel for Voter, the powerful story of one man's journey to restore the right to vote to 83,000 people. My name is Andrea McChristian, and I'm honored to be your moderator for tonight's event. I serve as the Law and Policy Director of the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, a legal policy and advocacy organization based in the mighty city of Newark, New Jersey. I'd like to thank NJPAC and PSEG for joining with us to put on tonight's program. For those unfamiliar with the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, the Institute's mission is to use cutting-edge racial and social justice advocacy to empower people of color by building reparative systems that create wealth, transform justice, and harness democratic power from the ground up right here in New Jersey. Tonight, what brings us all together is that last portion of our organizational goal, the harnessing of democratic power. And it's significant that tonight's event is happening 8 days before what many argue is one of the most important elections of our lifetime. The Institute has been proud that our democracy and justice advocacy, ably led by our Democracy and Justice Pillar Director, Henel Patel, and in partnership with the team and key partners and so many of you, has led to a number of policy wins for democracy, including automatic and online voter registration, the end of prison-based gerrymandering for state legislative redistricting, litigation that led to the creation of a statewide notice and cure process for ballot signature issues and defeated the Trump campaign's challenge to New Jersey's November election plan, and also led to New Jersey dedicating $9 million to ensure an accurate census count. And tonight, I'm particularly proud to discuss how the Institute, in partnership with numerous partners, a few of whom join us tonight, launched the 1844 No More campaign, which led to the successful passage of historic legislation that restored the right to vote to 83,000 people on probation and parole in New Jersey. In this pivotal election year where so much is at stake, this transformative law has expanded the franchise to those whose rights have been subjugated too long by a racist criminal justice system. I'll talk more about the campaign and its formation in a few minutes, but I'm so excited that we're joined tonight by such an esteemed panel of leaders, advocates, legislators, and overall change makers who were dedicated to this historic bill's passage. To provide you all with a run of show, I'm excited that at the top of the program, we'll hear remarks from New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, who powerfully signed into law the Voting Rights Restoration Bill. I'll then introduce the film that brings us here tonight, Voter, a powerful film created by Jeff Eric that uses the story of my Institute colleague, Ron Pierce, who we'll also hear from tonight, to show the historic significance of the Rights Restoration Bill, particularly to the 83,000 New Jerseyans who got their right to vote back. After the film, I'll then turn to our panel of esteemed guests who include Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter, a prime sponsor and leading legislative champion for the Rights Restoration Bill, Jeff Eric, Voter's filmmaker, Antone Henshaw and Tia Ryan's leading advocates in the 1844 No More campaign who recently had their right to vote restored, my Institute colleague Ron Pierce, whose story we're about to witness, and my other Institute colleague Henel Patel, our Democracy and Justice Director, who both ably championed the Rights Restoration campaign. Now, to kick us off, we'll listen to recorded remarks from Governor Phil Murphy on the importance of this historic legislation and what it means for democracy in New Jersey and nationwide.
Governor Phil Murphy here, and believe me, I wish we were together in person. It is my honor virtually to join the New Jersey Performing Arts Center and the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice as part of this important program, and I especially want to thank President Ryan Haygood of the Institute for both his leadership and his invitation to be with you. I also want to thank Ron Pierce for his commitment to democracy. Ron has been a powerful and tireless advocate for voting rights, and I have no doubt that Voter will be a moving and effective force for change. Our administration is firmly committed to transforming our criminal justice system and protecting and expanding voting rights, and that's a critical piece of this process. If we aim to live in a truly just society, the primary objective of our criminal justice system must be rehabilitation and integration. Beginning long before even my campaign for governor in 2017, I consistently called for restoring the right to vote to residents on probation or parole and made it a priority for our administration. And that is why in December of last year, I was especially proud to sign a historic law restoring voting rights for roughly 80,000 New Jerseyans on parole or probation. Residents, by the way, just like Ron Pierce, who was with me that day. Residents who are living as full participants in their communities and yet have been needlessly prevented from having a voice in the future direction of those very same communities. It's a simple principle, really. Our democracy is stronger when more people are able to participate in it, period. Full stop. Over the past few years, our nation has had to take a hard look at itself. And although some would pretend otherwise, the truth is that systemic racism pervades our society at all levels, unfairly stacking the deck against many residents, especially in our Black and brown communities. And regrettably, For nearly 180 years, New Jersey participated in this systemic disenfranchisement. I am proud and frankly relieved that New Jersey is leading in helping to eliminate the obstacles to full participation in our society. And I am honored that Voter will help tell the story of redemption. No one should be judged based on a single mistake. And we must allow people to be seen for more than the mistakes they once made and to remain on a path to full participation in our society upon release. This kind of reform affirms the hope that all of us, no matter our past, can reach our potential for greatness in the future. It affirms our belief that every citizen's voice matters. We are on a mission to make New Jersey stronger and fairer, not just for some, but for all residents. And we cannot achieve that reality without protecting and expanding voting rights. Again, I want to thank the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice for working tirelessly to ensure that the court-involved community has a strong advocate in their corner. And I look forward to our continued partnership in making New Jersey stronger and fairer, not just for some, but for all. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be a part of this important program, and God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you so much to Governor Murphy for this powerful statement and for his leadership on the rights restoration issue. I'd now like to share a few opening remarks to frame the amazing film Voter we're all about to see. As I mentioned earlier, the campaign that successfully advocated for the restoration of the right to vote to 83,000 New Jerseyans is called the 1844 No More campaign. 1844 was not only the year that New Jersey first prohibited people with criminal convictions from voting, but it was also the same year it constitutionalized its restriction of the right to vote to white men. But this wasn't by chance. From its very founding, New Jersey has had a history of separating its Black residents from full access to democracy. Indeed, New Jersey was the first northern state to restrict the vote to white men. It opposed the Emancipation Proclamation and was the last northern state to abolish slavery. And following the Civil War, New Jersey refused to ratify the Reconstruction Amendments. In fact, by the 1830s, New Jersey was home to more enslaved Africans than all of New England combined. Prior to the historic passage of the Rights Restoration Law, over 102,000 people in New Jersey were denied the right to vote, more people than the total population of Trenton. And as with many voter disenfranchisement issues, this denial was racialized. Although Black people comprised just 15% of New Jersey's overall population, they represented almost half of those who lost their right to vote because of a criminal conviction. And because New Jersey has the highest Black to white incarceration rate in both its youth and adult populations, this denial of the right to vote was a racial justice issue that directly and disproportionately impacted New Jersey's Black communities. And this racist stripping away of rights occurred even as doing so undermines the goals of public safety. For one, it is not retributive because losing the right to vote is non-penal. Two, stripping people of the right to vote does not deter the commission of offenses. Three, denying this precious right incapacitates people who could otherwise help contribute to New Jersey's thriving democracy. And last, giving people with criminal convictions the right to vote only strengthens rather than diminishes rehabilitation. For all these reasons and more, the Institute in 2017 wrote the formative report, We Are 1844 No More, Let Us Vote, which made the case for why we must restore the right to vote to people with criminal convictions. And using this report as a foundation, we then joined with hundreds of partnering organizations, formerly incarcerated people, advocates, faith leaders, civics associations, and others to launch the 1844 No More campaign to show New Jersey and the nation that we are 1844 no more in continuing this racist practice. And in partnership with legislative champions like Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter, who we'll hear from in a bit, Senator Ron Rice and Senator Sandra Cunningham, and so many others, we were able to pass legislation restoring the right to vote to 83,000 New Jersey residents on probation and parole this past December, which went into effect in March. And with this major victory, we are armed to continue our campaign to restore the right to vote to the 19,000 incarcerated people who still do not have access to this fundamental right, over half of whom are Black. As you'll hear from Ron, Antone, and Tia tonight, 3 of the 83,000 whose right to vote was restored this past March, the impact and value to the soul that comes with having their voice back in the democratic process cannot be overstated. Tonight's film Voter uses the story of my Institute colleague, Ron Pierce, to help tell the story of the 1844 No More campaign. With Voter, we're able to relive the trajectory of the campaign, seeing how Ron, Antone, Tia, and so many others pounded the pavement with community members, legislators, and others to pass this powerful law. I'm especially happy that this film has been made featuring my amazing colleague, Ron, who inherited a belief in the power of the vote from his father and voted often before having his right denied to him for over 30 years because of a criminal conviction. This powerful film speaks to the importance of the vote, the power of the vote, and why we must do all we can, everything we can, wherever we can, to ensure full, free, and fair access to the vote, especially in this critical moment. And with that, it is my honor at this time to present Jeff Erick's film, Voter.
Good morning, I'm with Election Protection. If you're going in to vote, if you have any issues, be it a broken machine, be it any issues whatsoever, and you need assistance, we can help.
Okay.
All right? Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
My name is Ronald Pierce. I'm from Bayonne, New Jersey, and currently I'm on parole. As a volunteer for Election Protection, I'm here to assist anybody with any issues they have when they go in to vote. And because my right to vote is at the moment not allowed, it feels like I'm being a part of the process to make sure that the process still works in this country. It was always important in my family to vote. The vote was vital, and it means so much. You know, voting is the cornerstone of democracy. It's what makes you a citizen. It's not only a right of yours, it's also a responsibility to your community. My father he was adamant how important the vote was. You know, so he had instilled in me the importance of the vote. Good morning. I'm with Election Protection. If there's any issue with voting, you can come out and let me know. I could assist.
All right.
All right?
Thanks.
All right. Have a good day. I haven't seen too many people come as a family. That was the big thing. Even when I was a kid, you know, go as a family, you vote, you walk home, and it was coffee and donuts, or milk and donuts when I was a kid. They believed that you had to be able to hold your government responsible, and the way you do that is if they're not doing what you like them to do, you vote for somebody else.
You have Henel on the call too, Henel Patel. She wrote our new report. And Ron Pierce, who I know you know. So I'll turn it over to Ryan now.
Thanks, Lori, and thank you to so many of you who've joined us for the release of our report today, Value to the Soul. So my name is Ryan Haygood. I lead the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. There are 2 states in the country that do not restrict voting for people with criminal convictions. So in Maine and Vermont, people vote whether in prison, on probation, or parole. And part of that recognition is that voting is recognized as a fundamental right that's not taken away by virtue of a criminal conviction. I especially want to thank Assemblywoman Sumter for joining us, and also for both sponsoring and championing A 3456, which is historic legislation that will finally restore voting rights to everyone in New Jersey with a criminal conviction.
At this point, within our powers as a New Jersey legislature, we have an opportunity to right some of the historic wrongs that are systemic within the voting process. So this bill gives us an opportunity to be a game changer, not only for our political system, but also for our civic system.
Good afternoon. My name is Ron Pierce. I am the Democracy and Justice Fellow at the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, and I am currently on parole and am denied the right to vote. In this campaign, we have sought to give voice to the people who have been silenced, to raise the ghosts of our democracy out of the shadows. I have been without a voice for more than 33 years. However, my father instilled in me voting was not only a fundamental right, but it was my duty to our community. When you're talking about the number of people being disenfranchised, the majority of people in prison come from the poor communities, and vast majority of them come from communities of color. So you're taking the voice away from those people that most need you to hear what's needed. So that's why the vote is important. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ron. We'll turn it now.
Friday, we found out that they hastily drafted a bill for parole and probation only, and then that they submitted it and posted it for a hearing for today, which is less like a week since it's first been introduced, where we couldn't get for 2 years we've been trying to get a hearing on the other one. I have mixed feelings about it. One, it's going to give voting back to 83,000 people, and yet the reality is we're not where a progressive state really ought to be. If it was just about me, I would be thrilled to death. But my fight isn't about me. It's about those that I made promises to on the inside that I would not forget them, and then I would fight for them, as well as myself, as well as everyone that's formerly incarcerated.
Assembly Bill 5823 removes the prohibition on voting by persons convicted of indictable offenses who are on parole or probation. Mr. Chairman, there are no amendments to the bill.
Thank you. We have a number of people that have signed up to testify. Because of the hour of the day, we may trim some of the testimony as we go, but we're going to start.
When disfranchisement first arose in the 1820s, it was a tool to diminish not just the voice, but the value of free black men and of women. In New Jersey, as some of you may be aware, women who own property could vote for a period of time before that was eliminated in the 19th century.
The United States criminal justice system disproportionately arrests, convicts, and incarcerates people of color.
New Jersey has the highest black to white incarceration disparity rate in the country.
We need to not
continue to repeat bad history that this country has already gone through. Stripping people of their right to vote is the same as relegating them to second-class citizens.
I believe that we are at a historic moment in our nation and in this state to turn the tide on what was first enacted to disenfranchise people that was emancipated from slavery.
Now, we have a considerable stack of people that are in favor. This committee would like to vote on this bill. I suspect the outcome today is going to be something you're going to be pleased with.
On the motion to report Assembly Bill 5823, Ms. DeMasso? Mr. Rooney has left a vote in the negative. Mr. Wirths?
This is part of the sentence. There has to be, this is a penalty. Whether you're on probation or parole, it's part of your criminal sentence. And it's not, you wouldn't be on parole if you weren't incarcerated for a serious crime. So I will be a no on this.
Ms. Munoz? Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Ms. Pinter-Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Mosquera?
Yes.
Mr. D'Angelo has left a vote in the affirmative. Mr. Conaway?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Scher has left a vote in the affirmative. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, the bill is released.
This doesn't cut it. This doesn't cut it. A solution for few is not a solution for all.
I'm not compromising either. They didn't give anybody that except for Anthony, any time to speak that was formerly incarcerated. So they're not listening to us yet.
Exactly. So it's almost.
Oh, you are forgotten in prison. It's more than a feeling, it's a reality. When I first got locked up, I got visited every week. Over time, people have to get along with their lives. My family did. And for the last 10 years of my sentence, I got visited by my family maybe 2 times, 3 times. Studies do show that being allowed to vote, right, lowers the recidivism rate. So how is it justified to remove voting from those incarcerated on parole and probation when what you're trying to do is rehabilitate so that they come out to be better members of society? You don't increase a democracy by silencing a population.
Bill on the clerk's desk.
On third reading and final passage, Assembly Bill 5823, sponsored by Slim vs. Sumter, Tucker, Holly, and Timberlake. Removes prohibition on voting by persons convicted of indictable offense who are on parole or probation.
Mr. Speaker, I move the bill.
Assemblywoman Sumter moves the bill. Assemblyman Weber.
There is a reason why we have a saying in our language that is used to denote something that's absurd. We say, the inmates are running the asylum. This bill literally allows the inmates to run the asylum. Both makes no sense and is completely unfair.
Assemblywoman Sumter.
It makes perfect sense to restore the rights to vote to 83,000 people who have made some type of mistake in their lifetime. The right to vote is not a privilege, but a constitutional right for those who are citizens of this great state of New Jersey.
This is an important bill for everybody. Not one party, not one human being. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I move the bill.
Please control yourself. Madam Clerk, please open the machine for a vote.
Still in there? You see, he got to push the vote.
Oh, did he?
He did. He pushed the vote. Yeah, he pushed the vote. Don't move. It's coming.
I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. I got to actually vote, even though it wasn't the vote in the voting booth, but I got to vote the bill in, and I'm a bit overwhelmed, you know, because now we got to go to the Senate and convince the Senate. Think about my father. Sorry. What about it? How he would feel about me getting to this point, considering how important voting was that he taught us from little children. So to be able to vote on a bill to allow people to vote, you know, it's got to bring pride in his heart. I just wish he was alive to see it.
What do you think he said?
It's about time he did something right. No, I don't know what he'd say. I really don't. He'd say, "You just did what you were meant to do." You know, so I don't know. That's about as far as I can go with that.
Wow. I've seen that film several times now, and each time I'm overwhelmed by its message of the significance and power of the vote and what it means to not only one's personhood, but one's soul. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to our esteemed panel. But first, I would like to recognize one of our attendees in the audience, former Democracy and Justice Director Scott Nowakowski, whose research and advocacy was critical to the launch of our campaign. Now to tonight's panel. My first question is for Ron Pierce, the Institute's Democracy and Justice Fellow, whose story in part we just witnessed. Ron, again, what a powerful film, and I'm so honored to work with you here at the Institute. How does it feel to have your journey portrayed in this powerful film? What have been some highs and low points along your journey for voter registration? And what keeps you going in this fight?
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Andrea. How do I feel about being portrayed in this video? I am honored, and not just because it's my journey, but because it is a journey for so many people. It's not just my journey. This is a journey that I'm just representing others in. I mean, and the highs and lows, there are so many highs and a few lows, but some of the highs are, for instance, meeting Assemblywoman Siobhan DeSumpter for the first time and watching how much of a powerful speaker she is and how dedicated she was and really pushed the envelope as far as she could push it. First going to the first meeting where we discussed this putting this together. I mean, I was an intern back then, if you recall, and I was amazed that somebody actually wanted to do this. You know, this is something I thought about back when I was in prison. I didn't even, you know, and then all of a sudden I get to intern for an organization that's actually doing what I was dreaming of in a political science class. You know, so that was an extreme high for me. When just meeting so many people, but then when the bill got passed, right? Just the overwhelming love I got from the Institute and the community. It just it was great. One of the other highs I almost passed up was when we started getting the people in prison and on parole to write about this report. I guess the value to the soul report. So it was amazing that so many people were saying, yes, I want my voice to be heard. I'm tired of being silenced. And so just seeing all of the grassroots come together and start pushing it. And then, of course, getting a pen when the governor signed it, that was a major highlight. Some of the low points it was a struggle. It was an uphill battle. And we'd get some legislators on board, and then others would kind of chip away at that had different agendas. And so I got to see the ins and outs of how democracy works in the structure of getting bills passed, the legislation. So that was a high point and a low point because I've seen both sides of it. But the lowest point was when I first got notified that they were going to take out the people that were incarcerated. That was a low point because it struck me as, and I heard all along that sometimes politics is the art of compromise and this and that, but we were moving slowly but surely. We were gaining traction on it, but we were running out of time as well. And so when they came to me and said, they want to do this, that was the biggest low point in this whole travel. But now to move forward, we still have the people we left behind to move forward with. One other low point. Can't forget this low point. Here we were, we got the bill signed. We're getting ready to ramp up this big campaign, and COVID hit us right before the campaign started. So that was like another serious low point, and we're still working our ways through that. But just being able to continue to advance democracy and advance the right for everybody to be heard. That's the journey that I really still want to travel, and I'm so glad that I have the Institute to work with that on, because I don't think there's an organization, and there's a lot of organizations I've come to love. I don't think there's another organization that I think can do the fierce work that the Institute does. So I'm proud to be part of that. And I'll kick it back to you now, Andrea.
Okay, thanks so much, Ron. And as I shared with you before, it's such an honor to work with you in this work and for this important racial and social justice movement. My next question is for Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter, who you heard Ron just speak so glowingly about, who's a close legislative partner of the Institute and one of the primary sponsors and leading legislative champions of A5823, the bill which successfully restored the right to vote to 83,000 people on probation and parole in New Jersey. A fierce, fierce partner of us here at the Institute. Assemblywoman Sumter, in this film, we hear you speak passionately in the legislative chamber about voting restoration. Why did you decide to sponsor this bill, and why is this issue so important to you?
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you to the Institute of Social Justice and the PSC&G Foundation for hosting this. Again, seeing the film reminded me of the journey we traveled together, sitting down with Ron and other members who have been disenfranchised, really opened my heart and my eyes to a silenced population of folks who did not have their rights to vote, and in fact had it taken without them even realizing when they committed whatever crime they committed that they would lose their right to vote. The fundamental right to vote is a humanitarian effort, is a part of our democracy, and stripping it away, especially since 1844, we heard countless stories on how it dehumanized individuals and constantly, continually traumatized them and reminded them of a time in their life where they made a mistake and paid for that crime. I was touched across the state. We traveled New Jersey during snowstorms. Ron would meet me
in different venues, churches on the weekend and the evening to testify and open the hearts and minds of all our partners, which were over 100 different organizations that work with us. And we met with legislators countless times to dissuade them on the erroneous thoughts that they had of why votes and the right to vote should be taken because you were incarcerated and how wrong it was. And literally, it was an uphill battle that was worth fighting. And we took our private time, you know this, Andrea, to socialize the issue and make sure that we heard every argument and truly stating that recidivism would be impacted by giving people their full rights to vote. I can tell you when I campaigned, and I shared this with my colleagues, we had people working on our campaigns and they were quiet about the fact that they could not vote. When we would ask them if they had time to register to vote, it was a no. They would avert their eyes. And I'm someone who likes to look people in their eyes when they're talking, and I watch body language because I'm in behavioral health. And there would be this closing into themselves because they couldn't vote and they were embarrassed about a mistake that they made and couldn't vote, but yet they were paying taxes. They were participating in every way they could to help get out the vote for leaders who they trusted and respected, like myself and countless others, to represent them not only in the state house, but on the local level as well. And it was important for me to really stop the argument that these folks are marginalized, that they are less than, but yet their rights to be part of the voting population in New Jersey should be fully restored. And we finally elected a governor who said he was going to do it, willing to do it, campaigned on this very issue. I wanted to make sure that we got a bill to his desk, and I really was not going to be deterred in getting that job done.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman. And we're so honored to stand with you in this fight and have you in the legislature with your fierce advocacy and leadership. And my next question is for Voters filmmaker, Jeff Eric, who created the beautiful film we just saw. Jeff, the film is so moving. Tell us a bit about your experience of making it, what you learned, what inspired it, and what you hope people get from the video or the film. Jeff?
Sure. Thank you for having me and sponsoring the screening of the film. Making this was very special experience, both because I got to be exposed to the issue and the advocates, but also working with Ron. He is a very sort of ideal documentary character. In a lot of ways, he really just puts everything out there, both in the way that he uses his story to move the needle on issues that are important to him and his neighbors. But also, I mean, like everyone at the Institute, he is a creative and dogged advocate for these issues as well. So it was a very unique experience and sort of a dream subject to work with in a lot of ways. This is an issue that I was interested in, having worked on a film called Life on Parole in 2017. That film never got into voting disenfranchisement. And it was something that was sort of left over that I wanted to investigate. And New Jersey just happened to be pushing this particular bill forward at the time. I live in New York. It was a sort of a good match in that way. But it's really, I mean, it is one of the most egregious, large scale forms of voter suppression. Here we are a week before the election, thereabouts, in this country. And if you need an example of a systemic racism, go no further. You know, by tying a supremely flawed and historically unequal penal system to the institution of voting, you ensure that this deep wound in our culture remains a permanent part of our society. But as you can see in the film, you can take big chunks out of this problem through legislation. And so I think it's very unique in that way as something that you can do something about. I think that screening this film, in previous screenings, I've seen that many people have no personal political position on this issue. They sort of take for granted the fact that people should and can have their voting rights taken away after criminal conviction, potentially to never get them back. But I think, like a lot of issues having to do with criminal justice in this country, people rely on their emotions a lot in deciding if they're uninformed about a topic. They sort of let their emotions guide them, and they let these big headline cases sort of direct their attention and help them make their decisions. And you saw this, it came up in a town hall debate where they asked Senator Bernie Sanders if he would, he's from Vermont, which is one of the 2 states where people in prison can vote. And they said, you're even in favor of the Boston Marathon bomber being able to vote. And, his position, as many people's position, is that this is just not something you take away, even in these egregious cases. But I think that most people are persuadable on this. There are some hardliners, and I spoke to Senator Cardinelli in New Jersey. He didn't make it into the final cut of the film, but there are people who really will, die on that hill. But I think that most people are really, really at their core just waiting for a good argument to sort of come on this side of on the fence on this issue. I hope people take the 15 minutes to see the film and reflect for themselves about what they believe. Is it worth the millions of silenced voices to punish a few individuals in this particularly specific and anti-democratic way?
Jeff, thank you so much for those comments and for this beautiful, beautiful film. My next question is for Tia Ryans, founding executive director of Fort House and a leading advocate in the 1844 No More campaign. Tia, on the Institute's website, you speak in a moving video about how you feel like you always had a voice, but now you feel like it's heard. What has it been like for you to have the right to vote for the first time?
Well, thank you for being here first, for allowing me to be here. So to have the ability to vote for the first time, I was overcome with so many emotions. I kind of just shut down and said, I'm just not going to pick one, right? So I just kind of went into a little shell, like, is this real? You go through the feeling of goosebumps and disbelief. And, as Ron touched on, that roller coaster, the up and down, you go through the assembly, you go through the Senate. And it's such a big process that, it takes a lot of emotion. And I just kind of like shut down, like, I don't know, but I know I'm happy somewhere in there. And like I was in disbelief because it's such a huge issue, and it carries such weight that I didn't even think it could be done. Like, it was just, the Institute just kept on pushing and kept on pushing and kept on pushing. And it meant a lot to someone like me, because it was like, this is never going to happen, right? You go through this phase of disbelief and you're like, no. But Assemblywoman Sumter, she literally nailed it on the head when she said that people would ask, like, hey, did you vote? And you get real embarrassed. Like, you would just say no, but there's no explanation behind it because you can't. And recently, touching on me not still having a voice, still being able to use my voice, although I wasn't able to speak recently when we were making sure that folks were registered to vote, and we hit the ground and we went to 6 different cities and throughout the state of New Jersey to make sure that we get people out there, get people registered. A lot of times I heard people say, when I would ask them, hey, did you register to vote? And they would say, oh no, I'm formerly incarcerated. And it felt so good. It felt so good to say, I am too. We can vote now. You didn't know? It felt really good to say that. So, it means a lot to me. But excuse me. Now, we've been hearing like over and over of the historical component when it comes to not being able to vote, right? We know the statistics, we know the history, we know that there's an uneven, unjust in the same Black and brown communities, and affects the same Black and brown people today as it did in history. And I also touched on my video about that history, about the Constitution, about being me questioning, am I 3/5 of a human because I can't vote? And then I sit there and weigh, well, there's a census, right? There's prison gerrymandering and there's things like that. So I can be counted as a whole person when it comes to distributing funding. I can be counted as a whole person when it comes to deciding who gets what resources and how much of those resources. I can be considered this whole human, this whole citizen. But when it comes to being able to vote, I would think like, when did I become not human anymore? So I would always refer back to that. And then I hear people speak about often about well, not everyone, but a huge chunk of people that are opposed to me and 83,000 other people having the right to vote, saying, well, we were sentenced, right? But that's a collateral consequence of a sentence. It's not a direct sentence. My direct sentence was to serve time in a specific institution. It was not, you don't have the right to vote. That is not my sentence. That is a collateral consequence of a sentence. So I just want to be clear with that. But I want to leave, I don't want to take up too much time, but I want to leave just by saying that, having the right to vote does not make me a citizen. I have the right to vote because I am a citizen. Thank you.
Tia, thanks so much for those words. It's been such a pleasure meeting you, getting to know you, and standing with you in this fight. For those of you who are wondering, Tia was referencing her video that's on the Institute's I Got My Voice Back website, available off of the Institute's main website, which shows the story and the impact of formerly incarcerated people who finally have their vote and their voice back in the democratic process. Thank you so much again, Tia. I'd now like to turn to Antone Henshaw, a graduate student at Rutgers Camden and another leading advocate in the 1844 No More campaign, and who has the opportunity during this election, like Tia, to vote for the first time. Antone, like Ron and Tia, you had your vote restored last December, and you've been a strong advocate for this cause, and I'm so excited that I've got to stand and meet you and work with you as well. Tell us about your journey from losing the vote to getting it back, and what it will be like to vote for the first time this year. Antone?
For me, every time we talk about this, I just start smiling, and I'm not a smiley person, but I remember coming home in 2018, and I was on Rutgers campus in Camden, and they had these group of kids that were standing there in these yellow t-shirts, and on their shirts the question was, did you vote because I can't? And myself and Ibrahim Soudamani were walking past them coming from the student center, and they asked us, did we vote? And we lied. And we said we voted because we didn't know what to tell these 9 and 10-year-old kids as to why we couldn't vote. And I remember us sitting down, eating lunch, and he looked at me and I looked at him. I said, I feel like a piece of crap that I had to lie about not being able to vote. And when we started this campaign and stuff like this, because Ron was talking about this stuff while we were inside and he was pushing it. And for me, he was dog determined to get this done. So I knew it was going to happen. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I supported him. I love him. And then that's how I got to meet all of you beautiful people. And then I was watching you guys for the first time. We don't get to see this inside, that people that's fighting for us, pushing for us, encouraging us to do these things. So for me, I'd never voted before. I was locked up as a kid. So once we started doing the work and it got signed and it got passed, and I was fortunate to be on the Senate floor to push Senator Cunningham's button for the first time to restore my right to vote. That was amazing. But in that moment, I thought about the administrator that told me inside East Jersey State Prison, we could do whatever we want to you because you don't vote. And if you don't vote, you don't count. And I'm looking at him like, like, what are you talking about? So all of this came full circle. I got real emotional when We were in Newark and the governor signed it. I got emotional when Ron and myself was with Ryan in the church in Newark, and we signed our voter registration form, and we went to go to Dunkin' Donuts to get the donuts and the coffee for Ron. And it wasn't until I walked into the voter booth in Camden and did the preliminary ballots for this upcoming election, and I actually voted. But I knew that was just the precursor to that. So everybody was like, "Did you turn your voter ballot in?" And I'm like, "Nah, I'm going to the booth. I ain't trying to hear that. I want to push them buttons. I want that curtain to close behind me." I used to wonder as a kid what adults were in there doing, and now I have that right restored. And I'm looking forward to just being able to have that breath to say we did it, and we still got work to do. You know, our goal is to be that third state in the union that restores the right to vote to everybody in our democracy and everybody in our state. And it doesn't matter whether you're incarcerated or incarcerated. It's a fight, and it's a fight worth having, because that means we're all inclusive. We're all human beings. And if you listen to what that gentleman said that opposed it and why he said no, he didn't say no to human beings. He said no to inmates. And that is very distinct to point out. That was labeling. That was othering, right? And when we get to the point where we see each other, even in the most darkest times, the most darkest decisions and behavior, as still being human beings, and that are worthy of mercy, and that is worthy of being included in this process, I think things will change and it'll be a lot more. But we got to get into this public health space. Everybody knows me, knows that I see things through a public health lens, and democracy, if done right, makes us healthy. And I look forward to humanizing our issues and connecting with our community, with the people, and just letting them know that there are human beings in there. We vote every year in prison too. People don't know that. You vote for your elected officials inside, and this is just an extension, because they teach us that in there. And this is just an extension of what they're teaching for us to come out and be a part of the democracy. So if they can teach us that in there, it's already set up for it to happen. Let's continue to push, and let's get the 18,000 more on the voter rolls. And we are registering. We've registered over, I want to say, 365 people in the county of Camden. We got a lot more work to do. COVID slowed us down, but we're not deterred. We still have elections coming in 2021, and we're going to get that 83,000 registered to vote.
Thank you, Antone. And that was one of the audience questions. So I'm going to be circling back to you and some of the other panelists about how many people were able to register to vote. But it's been such an honor to work with you and learn from you during this fight, which still continues. So now I'm going to turn to Henel, our Democracy and Justice Director at the Institute, who has ably led this body of work for our organization through this historic election season. Henel, with the restoration of the right to vote to 83,000 people on probation and parole, what's next for the 1844 No More campaign? And with one of the most important elections of our lifetime only a few days away, what do you want our audience to know about the New Jersey voting process? Henel?
Great question. So what's next for the campaign? Well, first, it has been, and I know, Andrea, you're going to ask some of the other panelists to go into it a little more about how many people registered. But first, it is that, right? We want to make sure that everyone on parole and probation know that they have the right to vote and have a meaningful ability to participate in this process. It's something we've been working on all year, and we'll continue to do that, right? Because the thing about our criminal justice system is more and more people are being convicted every day, and more people are being sentenced to probation or are coming into parole. There was actually a bill signed recently, a tremendous bill that gave credit for people who are currently incarcerated because of the COVID pandemic. And so we're going to see thousands of people come out in the next few weeks. And so it is about informing them as well. So what does that mean in terms of policy? Well, one thing I hope everyone in the audience can help us do is we are determined to, one, extend automatic voter registration to the parole board, to the DOC, because that'll make things significantly easier for people to register. Right now, automatic voter registration is in, we have it through MBC, and it's made a tremendous difference for all voters in New Jersey. So it's important to capture this population who are impacted by this new law, which is great, but who are not used to having the right to vote being just a given, right? Because it hasn't been a given for decades in the state, in this state, and isn't a given in so many other places around this country. But then here's the thing: we're not done yet. You watched the film today, and I hope I see it from the chat that it was as powerful to you as it is to me. As Andrea said, I've watched it a few times, and every time I do, I'm moved again. But as Ron so ably said during the film, his mission, our mission, the campaign's goal is to cut the ties between our broken criminal justice system and all the racism inherent in it, cut that tie from that with our electorate. So we are not giving up until we restore the voting rights to everyone in New Jersey with a criminal conviction. So that means people who are currently incarcerated. So that is going to be that is the next step of this campaign. We hope everyone watching today joins us in that. Talk about why this is important. Share this video. Share the stories of people who have the right to vote back. Because here's the thing, as Ron said, it was a little bittersweet when only people on parole and probation got the right to vote, but it does mean we have 83,000 more people who are going to help us fully restore the voting rights here in the state. And then finally, what does it mean? It means encouraging people who are impacted people who now have the right to vote, but everybody, about the importance of voting. It is important. There wouldn't be so many people working so hard to deny people the right to vote if it didn't matter, if it wasn't so powerful. And so how do you do that? Well, you tell them how to, you provide resources and you educate the public on how to vote. So we are right now in the middle of one of the most, if not the most important elections in our lifetimes. So I hope everyone here participated, is planning to participate, and if not, I am happy to, I hope this convinced you to do so. But I'm going to take a minute now and just go over how to vote, because this is the thing, this election is different than what we're used to. And that means that it understandably has caused a lot of confusion, but that's okay. We can go through it, and I'm just going to go really quickly through how to vote. So if we can pull up, perfect. So how do you vote in New Jersey in this November election? New Jersey has a paper ballot election this year. What does that mean? That means that every active registered voter was mailed a vote by mail ballot to your home. So what do? You can fill it out and put it in the mail. I'm going to stress this right now. If you have not done this yet, I'm going to encourage you to use one of the other ways to vote. We have been seeing a lot of mail delays this year, so there are other ways to vote this time. I'm going to go through 4 more. Take advantage of one of those. If you don't have access and you do need to use a mailbox, that's fine. Go ahead and do that, but make sure go to a post office. Make sure it's postmarked so that it counts. We want to make sure your ballot counts. Here's another way to vote, though, a really popular way that a lot of people have used this year. It is you can use a secure drop box. That's the second way to vote in New Jersey. There are secure drop boxes all over the state. There are literally hundreds of them now. You find one and you put your ballot into it. They are accessible 24/7 and have video surveillance. So you just have to find it and put your ballot in. You have to use a drop box in your county. It can be any drop box in your county, but you have to use one in your county. So make sure you do that. And it's a county you live in, not the county you work in if it's a different one. So please use a drop box in your county and you can vote. The third option is you can go in person to your county board of elections and you can just drop it off there. The county board of elections are the ones who count our ballots. So this is option 2 and 3, or we're just cutting the USPS mail from this process. We love USPS, but we know we've been dealing with mail delays all year. So we want to make sure all your ballots are counted. So you can go in person to your county. Now, there's a quick question that came up, and it's a great one. What if you lost your mail-in ballot? Okay, great question. And similarly, what if you didn't get one yet? I know a lot of people have been asking that too. Like, I didn't get my ballot yet. What do I do? Okay, so one, you just have to call your county and get a replacement ballot. Again, right now, I stress that you should go in person to get one. They will mail you one, but it's a challenge. And it was a deadline to apply by mail was actually yesterday. So if you go in person, you can get a ballot right there and vote. Or you can pick it up, take it home, or if you have it still in the mail, you can use your fourth option and you can drop off your vote by mail ballot at your polling place on election day. This is crucial. Every single municipality in New Jersey is going to have at least one polling place open. Find your polling place. It might be the one you've been used to voting in all your life, or it's not. Double check the address before you go, but you can go there and drop off your ballot there. Or fifth, and this is also an option, if you did not get your vote by mail ballot yet and you can't go in person or to the county, what can you do? You can vote in person at a polling place on election day. This is the option Tone was talking about. You can go in person and do that. However, I want to stress one more thing. It will be by paper provisional ballot. Unless you have a disability under the ADA and need an accommodation, you will be voting by paper provisional ballot. A lot of people have questions. A paper provisional ballot is just a ballot. It's actually really similar to a vote by mail ballot. They verify that you are a registered voter and you have the right to vote, and then they'll count them. Paper provisional ballots do count. I know there's a lot of misinformation out there about that, but they do count. So please take one of these options and vote. We are seeing right now around the country people lining up and voting in ways that we haven't seen in a long time. The voter enthusiasm in this election is just possibly it's unprecedented in ways. We are going to see turnout that maybe exceeds anything we've seen in decades, if not in all our history. Don't miss out on that. There's a reason why people are voting. People are motivated, people are encouraged, and it matters. And it's not just the presidential election that matters. I know sometimes we think that, depending on the state, does it really? It does. There's a lot of races on the ballot. And if nothing else, we just spent about an hour watching a video and listening to stories of people who've been denied a voice, who've been denied the power to participate. Your vote is your voice. Don't stay silent.
Thanks so much. And before I leave you, there was actually one question that came up. What if you just moved, but in the same county and your address doesn't match?
Right. So I would encourage you to go vote in person. Go vote in person on election day at your polling place. They'll let you vote by provisional ballot. If you're in the same county, you're allowed to do that. And so you just have to go to that polling place where you're originally, and then you can vote.
Thank you so much, Henel. And all the information that Henel was just talking about is available in the Institute's website at njisj.org/vote. So we have time for a few audience questions before we conclude. So one that came up and which Tone spoke to a little bit, so I might go to Tone first. Huge achievement. The audience member is congratulating everyone for the achievement, and he wanted to know how many of the new 83,000 prospective voters do we know personally actually registered? So Tone, I might go to you, then turn to Ron and Tia, and Henel if you wanted to add anything as well.
We know because we registered them. And it's to the point where we work with the New Jersey Institute of Social Justice. We had democracy cookouts when the weather was good here at Dare Academy in Camden. We were also partnered with community organizations, Center for Family Services, the Deltas came, the League of Women Voters, Volunteers of America, Pathstone. Many different organizations in the Camden County area came out and helped us register. We also worked with All Enough or None when they did a pop-up voter registration campaign, and Ron and Cass Severe and a few other brothers that I had just met for the first time came down to Camden, and we went to like 4 or 5 different locations to register people and to really like educate, because that is the biggest thing. The biggest thing right now is educating them that they have the right to vote, because most people don't know that this law has been signed and passed and that they can. So we know because we've done it, and we have the information. If anybody's interested, we could show what we've done. We've done it at the Conservancy in Newark. We all over the state. We just go. We in Trenton, wherever, New Brunswick, wherever we go, this is what we do. This was our passion, and this is how we've accomplished the voting. I'm registering so many people to vote.
Thank you, Antone. And Ron or Tia, did you have anything to add?
Well, hold on, let me, okay, now, one thing I would add is we started out with the race council to start pushing the envelope. Race council is formerly incarcerated, is part of the Institute's initiative to get people that are formerly incarcerated to work on civic engagement. And so we had a meeting and we discussed this, and we asked each party to start trying to develop ways to reach out to people and register, especially those formerly incarcerated, people on parole, probation, and people that were not understanding that when they completed their sentence, they could have registered, but now we wanted to make sure everybody understood that the law hasn't changed. You have the right to vote in New Jersey if you're not currently incarcerated for a felony, an indictable offense. It's not called a felony conviction in New Jersey, which is something else I learned in this travels. Anyway, so the council was about 15, and if each one did what others did, some did more, some did less, so we can calculate at least four, I think it was 425 was the last count. I could be mistaken on the number exactly, but 425, because it wasn't just the council, but the council belonged to different organizations. Like Tia also is part of All of Us or None, and she talked about the 6 cities we went. We were in Atlantic City with Black Men United. We went to Long Branch. So we went to all these cities to register people to vote. And in Long Branch, it was the NAACP and Masons were helping, were working with us. So we registered thousands of people, at least a couple of thousand. And the county jails, can't forget the county jails. The county jails, we did a campaign on, we did a video to tell people that they had a right to vote. We also sent in a 1-page informational packet to let them know they have the right to vote. And certain counties did a lot better than others, but we registered at least 5, one time I had the number, I don't have the number here, but we registered over 400 people in the county jails that had the right to vote. So while maybe we don't have the numbers exactly of the 83,000, those that you enfranchised got civically engaged enough to spread out across the state and help others to get enfranchised, even if they already had the right to vote. They didn't, if they hadn't registered, they hadn't practiced it. So it created the thing I like to say most is it gave a spark of hope, and a spark of hope ignites the fire of transformation, and that's what we did.
Thank you, Ron. Tia, did you want to add anything?
Oh,
If not, it's okay.
No, I couldn't get my video.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Yeah, so just to definitely snowball of what Ron already mentioned. So, when you introduced me as the founder of Forcing Out Recidivism Through Education, aka Fort House, but I'm also the founding chapter leader for All of Us in Northern New Jersey. And one of our initiatives this year was to make sure that we get folks that are formerly incarcerated registered to vote, thanks to the Institute, for even creating this path, right? So as Ron mentioned, we received a bunch of funding from Dive In so that we can make sure that we were able to fund this project around the state. And we did get hundreds of folks registered to vote. And then through our social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, we had people, if we weren't in their cities, they would message us and say, hey, if you're going to be in my city, make sure you let me know, and then we would just forward them the information. We may not be in your city, but here's how you can still do this. And again, thanks to the Institute with different ways that you can mail in ballots and go register to vote in person and things like that. We were able to forward that information to folks to make sure that they were able to vote as well. So hitting the ground running, making sure that we were out there partnering with the other organizations was really key for us. And again, as I mentioned previously, the fact that people didn't even know they had the right to register to vote was amazing. To be there, to be that person to say, no, you can. And they're like, no, I can't. I'm like, but I'm formerly incarcerated and I've registered to vote and I got my ballot, and you can do those things. So, there still are folks out there that don't even know that they can. So the fact that we were able to be on the ground and say, yes, you can, was bigger than anything that I've done in years, because it was that moment, that light bulb where it's like, wait a minute, I can. And to see them changing from speed walking by our table, like, oh, I don't even want to look at it because I can't, to them stopping, and you see the wheels, you can almost see the wheels turning in their head, and they turn back around. And it's like, listen, do you know this is a historical moment? And it's like, you can vote as of March. No, come on, let's go. And they sit, they pause, they come back. And I've seen it. I saw it so many times. So it just made me proud. It made me excited to be a part of this movement in a different way, being a part of the movement to encourage people to vote, but to actually sit there and be a standing visual, a tangible thing that says, no, I'm formerly incarcerated as well, and I could do it as well. And to be there on the streets of communities, you look at the stats, communities that traditionally don't have high voter turnouts, to be in those communities and make sure that folks understand the historical path of even being allowed to vote, and then making sure that they do it and walking them through it. And this is how you would do it. And it was beautiful. I can't wait to do it again. And another thing is, while we were out there, we found a song. It was a rap song that explained that voting for the presidential election wasn't the only election that folks need to vote for. The song explained how the three branches of government and how voting for Congress was just as important, because they create the laws, and presidents and mayors and things like that, they just have to kind of write them off and review them and things like that. So the fact that we were even able to educate them on those three branches of government that we kind of forgot in middle school, and what they do and how we can use them in presidential elections are not just the only elections, like school board elections and things like that. Just voting, period, was in pushing that habit was it was a big thing for us. Not just presidential, just creating a habit that would stick with them for small local elections, state elections, and of course, presidential elections.
Exactly. Thanks so much, Tia.
If I may, Andrea?
Yes. Assemblywoman Sumter, I was actually going to come to you next, because the next question as well is about what the state is doing to give people notice that their right to vote is restored. So I'd love you to answer that question in addition to the one you're answering.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And Tia, thank you for, of course, that enthusiasm. What we would like for people to know is that as of today, the probation officers are notified or have notified over 25,000 probationers that they are, parolees that they are eligible to vote. And persons on probation can earn 1 credit if they vote or if they register to vote. So I'm working closely with the state to make sure that we socialize this issue. As I believe Ron mentioned, COVID-19 hit right when we were about to run our full campaigns. So it's critical that we have the one-on-one conversations and use organizations, faith-based institutions, social groups. We're working with the Greeks as well as the Eastern Stars and all of the entities that are trusted within our communities, because this is not something people freely talk about. So literally it's important that we are the trusted sources to let people know that they can in fact register to vote and they can vote in this election if they have registered. So as was mentioned, it's important to clarify all the myths, because we've been told for so long all the reasons why you could not vote. So we need legitimate voices. And then Andrea, I'm sorry, because I was thinking about making sure I got that point across. What was the question you wanted me to answer?
You answered it exactly. I was going to ask the next audience question was about notice.
Yes.
And you answered it perfectly.
Perfect. And I will say also on the New Jersey Division of Elections website, they actually have a link to direct folks in how to vote. And we had to fight for that as well. The Institute was very helpful because again, when COVID-19 hit, the information just was not uploaded in a timely manner for us to get the message out. And you also can register to vote online. I think that was said at the beginning of this panel, which is important because now we have over 400,000 new registrants in the state of New Jersey who voted online. So it's a very exciting time, as I think Hanel had mentioned as well. So let's participate and use this time and this moment and seize the day and let's get folks voting.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Assemblywoman. And Henel, I don't know if you want to speak to any additional public education materials available on the Institute's website.
Absolutely. My video is not turning on, but I could, I hope you could. Okay, there we go. Yes, and there's a couple of questions I wanted to answer in the chat box to clarify a couple of things people asked. So one, what's the difference between an indictable offense and a felony? Nothing in New Jersey. We don't, but under our laws, we use indictable offense in place of a felony offense, but that colloquially, we, people refer to it as a felony, but it's an indictable offense under our law. It's important because if someone you know or you have been convicted of a non-indictable offense, so a juvenile offense, if you will, or a disorderly offense, which colloquially we call a misdemeanor, you have never lost your right to vote in New Jersey. You have the right to vote. Most people don't know that. So it's important for us to make sure we're clear when we're talking about this this information, because a lot of people don't realize they have the right to vote because of so much confusion, because of how confusing the system is. And then someone mentioned, how can you vote if you what are the other ways to vote if you don't want to vote by mail? Well, it's the ones we mentioned. That I mentioned. One, you can go vote in person. You absolutely can. You have the right to do so. Go to your polling place. It is by paper ballot, but you can do that. No, you cannot vote online. We finally have online voter registration here in New Jersey, which is huge. It's tremendous how effective it's been, but you cannot vote online. That is not an option here. So go vote in person if you don't want to vote by mail. And then a related question about the offenses, indictable offenses, and registering to vote. Someone asked, do you have to re-register? Great question. If you had lost your right to vote while you were on parole, because you were sentenced to a crime in the past or didn't have the right to vote, yes, you have to re-register. They took you off the rolls. However, going forward, so since March, if you are on probation and you don't serve any time of incarceration, they never take you off the rolls. So you do not have to re-register if you were already registered to vote. If you are on parole, generally in New Jersey, if you're on parole, it's because you were incarcerated before that. they will take you off the voter rolls. So you do have to re-register. Important distinction. One last thing I wanted to discuss with everyone, as Andrea mentioned, important information we have. Ballot curing. It started. If you're curious as to what it is, Andrea mentioned it earlier. We actually sued the state of New Jersey earlier this year to have a process in place for signature match issues. It is now law. It's really an important part of this. When you vote by paper ballot, so either by mail or in person by paper provisional, you're going to have to sign your ballot. When it goes to the county, when they count those ballots, they check that signature with your voter file. It's a security measure to make sure you're the one who's voting. That's a good thing, except that we all know signatures, they change from day to day. All of our signatures change from day to day. So it's not the best system. So we sued to have a process in place to address this. We have one now. It's called a ballot cure process. That means that, and they already started, the counties are going through ballots. If it looks like your signature doesn't match enough, they have to vote on it. It has to be a majority vote of the Board of Elections. They're going to send you a cure letter. Look out for it in the mail. Please look out for it. When you get it, it just says, hey, your signature was missing, or there's a mismatch issue. Are you the person who voted? Yes. There's a cure form. Fill it out. Say, yep, that was me. I voted. Don't throw it out. And then add some identification information, the same information you use to register to vote. So you're like your driver's license number or your last 4 digits of your social security number. You put that in and you get it back to the county. You can do it by mail, in person, by email, or by fax. You have until November 18th. It is important to do that to make sure your vote is counted. We have a lot of this information on our website that was linked earlier. You can go on njisha.org/vote. You can go on our broader website. You can see this. We have a ton of information for voter education, voter information to answer questions, information on this. We have information broadly about, your connection to your vote and policing. And if you go on our website, the NJISA main page, you can find the 10 things you can do right now in this moment in time.
Thank you so much, Henel. And so, Jeff, I'll give you the second to last question. People have been saying that they've been loving the film is available on the Institute's website, and hopefully we can drop that in the chat as well. But if people are interested in their own screening of the film, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, anyone can just use the link on either on YouTube or Vimeo. The film is also there, and hold a screening. I'm happy to participate, or you feel free to just reach out and say hi. Let's see, what's the best way? I'll put my contact info in the chat. That way I don't have to spell it out.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And so the last question is actually for Ron, Tia, and Antone. It would just be great if you could pick one word or maybe a couple words of how you'll feel casting your vote on election day. And I'll do Ron, Tia, and then Tone to close us out.
Complete.
Complete. Wonderful. Tia? Tia? Okay, we'll kick it. Tone, Antone?
Yes.
If you had to use one
question?
word, or maybe a series of a few words about how you're gonna feel come election day, casting that vote, what would you pick?
I'm gonna actually say that'll probably be one of my greatest moments of being free. Even though I'm still on parole, freedom would be, and that I matter and I count now. I can really put to rest what that administrator said to me inside East Jersey and say, yo, now I matter. And actually say you were right, because he was right. And then now to right that wrong.
Wonderful. And I want to thank you so much to our esteemed panel. for your wonderful words and remarks. For more information, again, about the Institute's, oh, Tia, I guess we got Tia now. Tia, did you want to leave us with one word or a couple of words about how you'll feel Election Day?
I'm excited to go to the ballot, to go to the actual physical location. Like Tone, I did not want to mail it in. Initially, I literally put it in an envelope and went to go mail it in, and then I said, no, I need to actually physically go because I was incarcerated as a teenager, so I never actually vote ever in my entire life. So this is historical, not just for me, but for so many people, and I'm excited to go in person.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tia. And those are powerful closing words. So if anyone has any more information about basic Q&A for the election season, please visit njisj.org/vote. You can also see on our website the I Got My Voice Back page with videos of Tia, Antone, Ron, and so many others in the campaign. For those of you looking beyond voting to learn how to get more involved in social and racial justice in your community, please visit the Institute's website for our recent publication, 10 Ways to Do Racial Justice Advocacy After You Say Black Lives Matter. With 8 days left to Election Day, be armed with the story of Ron, Antone, Tia, and the 83,000 New Jersey residents who now have their voice back to develop your own voting plan and vote. Vote for the 83,000. Vote for yourself. Vote for your families and loved ones. But vote, because voting brings value to the soul. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and have a wonderful night.